Renée Ballard and welcome to Lex Talk Design. Today we are speaking with Damian Hinks. Damian began his career in design over 20 years ago. He first started out in finished art and print process roles, then moving through to music management and production to studio management agency side. Damian has a long history of working in the Australian design industry, and in 2015 he started a new chapter which led him into consultancy, helping creatives and entrepreneurs to better understand themselves, visualize their career paths, and then create a path towards getting to their destination, running a successful and profitable business. Following 9 years of consulting, in 2024, Damian launched The Commercial Creative, an online program designed to help creative enterprises become profit-generating businesses. Welcome, Damian. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Renée. So good to be here. I've seen a few, I've listened to a few, and you've got some amazing guests on here, some of which I know, so it's an honour to be here.
I wondered that. I did think, when I reached out to you that I thought, I wonder who you know, because there's always the do you know, did you know, do you know? And the Australian design industry is enormous and small all at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and to give some context, how I came across you was via LinkedIn and via the GIA. I remember you did an event at the GIA. It must have been last year.
Yeah, I did one end of last year, and then I think I did one earlier this year as well.
And it had a really catchy title, and I thought, oh, that's very savvy. And, I've been affiliated with the GIA for years, and last year, we spoke, or earlier in season 1, we spoke to Bernadette Wilson, who was at the GIA, and Joan Kellick. Yeah, so it's lovely to see these through lines, and it's also kind of heartening as well to know that the GIA, is constantly stitching itself into the industry with the likes of having you speak to the members.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're fantastic. I think one of the talks that we did might have been that talk, I'm not sure, but it was around the challenges on pricing. And I think it was at the time it was I think we had 140 people turn up, and it was a very topical kind of issue at that time. But yeah, positioning it very, very well. And yeah, the turnout was great, and the feedback was fantastic as well. But love the DIA. They're an amazing team. So always happy to kind of support them in everything they do.
That's amazing. 140 people. That is just downright viral.
Well, I'd only done a few before, so I didn't really have anything to benchmark, and I was just based on what they were telling me. They were just like going, "It's 140." I'm like, is that good? Is that good? Are you happy? I'm happy if you're happy. I didn't mind if it was 5. It really doesn't matter, But when you're doing those sorts of presentations, but it was great. There was some really, really good feedback, and I think it was the time in the market as well. I think it was just everybody was there was a little bit of concerns. Everything was kind of ebbing and flowing, not really sure where they stood. So I think a topic like that is always going to be valuable to get into.
Do you think it's a good point? And because I kind of feel like that, especially for our industry, but it's quite myopic because we're in the design industry, but it almost feels like there was life pre-COVID with pricing, especially, and life during, and then life after. And we're all kind of, because we, like some businesses totally hit the wall during COVID, and other ones went absolute gangbusters. Like, if you could do your time again, you would have bought shares in acrylics and you've been pumping out sneeze guards like it was no man's business.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it was even the creative field, because I was obviously specialising in that space, but working more generally, a lot of my clients were creative industry. And anybody that was in the amplification game, like digital marketing was doing really well, PR was doing really well. So obviously businesses were getting stifled generally. And so anybody that could help amplify and sort of help you with differentiation. Branding was interesting. Whilst branding does achieve that, nobody was up for a rebrand. Nobody was up for the spend. Everyone was just holding their cards. Obviously photography, videography, things like that just got absolutely decimated. So it was a big change. The fun spike was the interior design spike, because obviously everyone's spending time at home, and it's like, well, if I'm sitting around at home, I might as well make it beautiful, So it was a very, very challenging and difficult time. Very validating for somebody in my seat who's just here to help businesses, with continuity. So it was a very validating moment as well.
Do you find that with your clients, did anything change? Like if you looked at 9 years ago, 10 years ago to today, and if you put COVID in the middle as the seesaw or the apex, have you noticed a change in demographic?
No, no, I mean not so much in demographic. I mean the catalyst, what it did change, I think the appetite for, say, pre-COVID, what the idea of your dream goal was with your studio or your agency and where you wanted to take it and things like that. That shifted a lot. That everyone kind of saw that we had to innovate. We had to deliver differently, and so suddenly innovation was just forced upon everybody's businesses, overnight, so there was a lot of kind of catching up, but then that obviously then becomes the new norm. We can do things differently. So what you had this really interesting working on people's kind of, strategic plans and what we're going to be when we grow up and all those sorts of things. And I want a global agency and studios all around the world. Suddenly it became, actually, no, I'd rather just be here and just work with a small team of highly paid, amazing specialists that are great at what they do, delivering a real impact for a small niche kind of audience. So that was probably one of the biggest shifts. The traditional, I want to grow a big agency turned into, you don't need to have that. That's just all I knew of what success was. So now I can actually maybe dictate what I actually want, and that's carried on. I think that tradition is kind of carried. A lot of big agencies are looking at how do they stabilize. They're not necessarily looking to grow, and a lot of the smaller guys that are really happy to just, punch above their weight and just stay small and nimble and profitable, and that's their big goal.
Yeah, I can totally understand that because I was at TKG Architects a couple of weeks ago for a DIA event, and Mel introduced herself and explained a bit about what TKG did. And she mentioned they had 65 staff.
Yeah.
And my first and only thought was payroll. And I felt sick.
Hungry mouth to feed.
The beast. Yeah. Feeding the beast.
Absolutely. Yep. And so, and I think inherently when, the sales or business doesn't come naturally, or it's not the key. It's not why we get into, it's not why we start a creative business, right? It's not to have a business, because you'd probably choose any other, a lot of other models potentially. But it's when you look at that, there's a lot of operational focus to just keep something like that sustained. So, yeah. Not, there are I still have clients who we are buying other businesses, we're on the acquisition trail. Like they do want to grow, they want a small group of companies, things like that. But yeah, just the general trend is, no, let's stay lean and let's just look after ourselves and look after our small tribe of people, but let's just do, incredible international level work,
Yeah. With the acquisition side of things with design, do you find with people, are they purchasing, like one agency buying another in any kind of field of design, anything from, I assume, like industrial product design, interiors, graphic? Yep. Is it the contracts of the agency that they're buying, contract/contact, or are they wanting to buy the talent?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times it's the quickest way to grow. You just literally you're buying clients effectively, and that's but I mean, there can be a lot of other reasons as well. Like, one instance, somebody might come up on the market and it's a blocking strategy to stop your competitors kind of obviously taking that acquisition, or if your competitor is looking to grow into a similar market, or it gives them competitive differentiation, those sorts of things. So, but there could be anything. Typically, like traditional sales in sort of it's the owner that's doing the sales, and you'll have inbound leads and the outbound activity that you're doing. But eventually the acquisition is the easiest way to start jumping up milestones. If you run a profitable business, that's why we do it. You've got cash that you can start, leveraging for your own sort of growth. So it becomes a very smart and easy way to be able to say, well, let's just buy some more clients. The other side is diversification too. Like if you're running a certain service and then you want to open up into kind of another territory, starting it yourself versus just buying that and bolting it into your existing business, things like that. So you could hire, train up, put the systems in place. And sometimes the purchase it's to buy the talent. It's an acqui-hire, I think. It's a great term. So getting those resources in and paying what you need to for those resources, and then that becoming part of the diversification of your core business, So
that's heartening. Like before I worked with like in design, I come from like advertising operator side, but PR, comms, marketing. And so when you need to get anything done with an agency, it always felt like a lot of smoke and mirrors, where it's like basically the person is a project manager and they're going to sub in all this, like all the
all the other,
IT web
yeah,
designers and
and everything. Yeah. I mean, it depends on, obviously it depends on the business. And like, I've got two clients at the moment who are going through acquisitions, and they're very different sectors, very different industries. And then what the acquisition is for is very different as well. But yeah, I mean, it's, that's kind of, for them, it was always part of the trajectory where we did that plan right up front. It was always, we want to get to this stage here. You can just follow the way that you've been doing it for a while. And occasionally these opportunities come up and you can just, you can just make the jump. And then you're that much closer to the destination. So it's a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of it, but when it comes up, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
God, it sounds terrifying.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay in my little business here. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. I don't need to be making any acquisitions myself. Thank you very much. I'm good.
Feels very Wolf of Wall Street mergers and
Yeah, it does.
acquisitions.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And
Mm.
yeah, it doesn't, like a lot of this stuff, it doesn't kind of come naturally to the creative entrepreneur. So, just like anything, surround yourself with a great team and, get out of their way pretty much.
Yeah, and this is what I find fascinating about the space you operate in is because there's designers and creatives and
Mm.
they're, artisans or they're on their tools or they have the big vision. And then you
Yeah,
have entrepreneurs, which of course fit in, I think, into the design world because they're creative, like creative in business. They can see a gap in the market
definitely.
or a solution. They can see a
Mm.
solution that needs to be birthed, very similar to
Yes.
design.
Yeah.
Um, but thereafter, I feel like it's a bit oil and water. And I just wonder your opinion on, because, talking about it seems almost frowned upon. Maybe it's our waspish culture in Australia, but very frowned upon to talk about money or
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
growth or wanting to grow, having ambition in business, let alone in design. It's almost,
Yeah.
like people's berets fall off or they, lose their cape and they're
I
Jim's a
love it.
gooch. It's to talk about
Yeah.
money, but at the same time,
Yeah.
like it's called work for a reason, and we generally work for a currency of cash. So, what do
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
like? Do you find that experience in the industry?
Yeah. I think it doesn't, business doesn't come naturally to the average kind of creative entrepreneur, but it's because, I mean, they don't, the goal isn't to set out to build a business typically. It's not, we don't start and on this journey, we start to be creative and we start to build and we want to make a difference or we want to make an impact and we want to bring something into the world through our own skills. The business is just the byproduct. It's just a vehicle of how to kind of make that happen. So it's not something that we identify with as far as that's the goal. I want to build a business and that business will create. It's just creativity first. That's my creative identity is first and the business identity is just it just kind of happens around people. So even the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, is definitely part of that sort of the creative spirit as well. But it's not usually linked to business. It's usually linked to, curiosity and expansion and ideation and things like that. And it's all the same thing, at the end of the day. There is 100%, I agree. There's a cultural hangover in Australia on this. We just don't talk about money. And as a result, I think it's not in the education system as well. There's an education gap, I think, unless you're deliberately going down that path yourself. So I just don't think it's those the fundamentals are kind of there in practice, or there's not a real resource. It is the key reason why I started the commercial creative was largely, I mean, it's in the name, obviously, but it was that the business is the byproduct. It'll kind of happen, but you can be both, and that's kind of okay. And that if you,
That is amazing.
business doesn't need to be the enemy, of creativity. It's not it's not oil and water, it's just, it's the fuel to get you to the destination. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, totally. You've just blown my mind. I had never differentiated between entrepreneurialism and business.
Mm.
I'd never even thought of it because business is the framework, it's the system,
Yeah. Mm.
it's day zero, like it's the
Yeah.
foundation.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurialism is up there. It's like a project. It's a vibe. It's an energy. It's a
Yeah. It's
campaign.
it's the want to explore, or to be curious and to kind of keep moving and make the most of kind of opportunities and things like that, which is the creative process in a way. And I've had some very good situations in the past. I've had clients who have, their identity is very firmly, in that I am the creative and this is kind of what I do. But they are the owner of the business and steering it. And I have one gentleman who is now a very dear friend, and he handed me his business card when we first started working together, and his title was CD/MD, so creative director slash managing director. But even that said absolutely everything to me. The order of those words, the fact that he'd even had it in that, that hybridized kind of CD slash kind of MD, it said everything about the tension that he felt and where he was at that kind of stage. But there was always that idea of I'm a creative director first, and you can never make me be anything else, and that is what my true love, and this is what I need to be. And yet the business needed a managing director. It needed somebody to make kind of decisions, and that's the key and very exciting tension is how do you be both? What's the tension of the and how do you actually live both those lives? And the cool thing about that story is he eventually did step up, put in a CD, and then go on to build multiple businesses because he was, at the end of the day, an entrepreneur, and he was an amazing creative director. He could just be that at a whole different level, at a whole different, playing field. So I always have that story up my sleeve talking to people about that. No, I want to be the creative director and that's all I want to be. And I'd rather hire kind of people around me. To be honest, that's the best thing about business. You get to be whatever you want to be,
Yeah, when you were explaining that, I was waiting for you to say, and then he became MD. Yeah, I was actually waiting for the opposite, but yeah, I didn't really. Yeah, of course you can pick either or, because maybe it's just my kind of social conditioning. So I'm like, follow the money, make sure you're on top of that, and or there's the egoic version as well. Sometimes like being a designer is quite prestigious, and so losing that title and going to an MD title can feel like you're slipping into the beige.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about the identity of this is the craft, and even then the scaling up idea of, if you want to grow that business and it can't always be you, how does that translate? And so the stepping away component can be challenging because obviously you have to create something. You have to create a mechanism to create that is not you actually doing the creativity. So you have to instill it all into something else, either people or a system or a process or something along those lines. So that is in itself is a really fascinating tension as well. The fear of failure or the fear of what's going to happen if I'm actually not there to watch every step and every move. But
oh yeah, absolutely. That's taking a newborn to an infant to a toddler.
Totally right. Yeah. But I mean, it's great because you can kind of, once you put a couple of those things in place, you can see the business isn't you, it's a separate thing, and you can have that removal of those two things. That in itself is a leap for a lot of people. But once you can kind of see that it is just a system, it needs what it needs. It's a living, breathing thing, and it actually needs money in, it needs resources, it needs, all these sorts of things. It needs systems, it needs processes. And then it can actually run independent of you and still create the standard that you want to create or the impact that you actually want to have in the world. That's a cool moment because you can actually see that, that leader, that creative leader can step away and look back at it and go, look at that. I've just come back from holidays for the first time in 10 years and everything's fine. That's a bit weird.
Yeah, that's like a unicorn dream.
It's not. It's easy. It can be done. It can be done for absolutely everyone. If you want it. That's the thing. You got to actually, if you are building that for yourself, if you want to create something that you can run independent of yourself, it can be taught.
And is that the gift of, because I imagine when clients come to you and then you speak such juicy, gorgeous words, then they find that's when you see or they find the block internally to themselves, like, because that just involves growth and confidence. Because when you were saying as well with an MD versus a CD, one of the major things is the CD. I mean, a good experienced CD, real life, where creative vessels and onwards comes through the creativity and you don't have to take it personally. But when you're negotiating contracts and money, with the client on the table, it's very hard not to, like, it's very easy with your MG hat on to negotiate. But when you're in CD mode, you're like, my babies, how dare you take my ideas and try and cheapen them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the being very clear around what is the work that you want to bring into the world or what is the work that you identify with, and starting to get selective. I think that idea of meaning, like, what is our purpose and why are we kind of doing this? I think all creatives set out with a very clear idea of the impact that they actually want to have in the world. And I think that's why I love this industry, because it's some of the most kind of inspiring and joyous people, because they're so fueled with that, clear sort of direction. The challenge becomes when that commercial engine sort of steers them away from that, and you're starting to then having to make commercial decisions and sacrificing the idea of values or creativity and things like that. Yes, you've got to keep the lights on, you've got to keep things running, but the longer that situation stays in place, that sort of starts to create the tension. So a lot of the times, those are the sort of situations that I'm helping I'm stepping into. It's because they've just strayed from the path that they set for themselves so early on, and then 5-7 years later they're running a business, they've got staff, they've got all these overheads and things like that, and we've made so many compromises on the way that we've just lost our way. And then so getting that meaning back, or getting that, why do we do this in the first place? What do those clients look like? What is that ideal situation that we kind of wanted, and why have we stepped so far away? And how do we kind of get back on the path? That's a big part of it as well. You have to wear those. The business needs what it needs. You have to wear those hats, and you do have to put on your MD hat and make the right decisions, and then you got to put on your CD hat and make the right decisions. Better yet, just stop wearing so many hats. There's plenty of people. Share the hats. Come on. Like, honestly.
Yeah. It's one of the traps, I think, of that kind of stoicism of I can do everything all the time on my own. And maybe this is a COVID thing, because we started Lex, I don't know, give or take like 18 months before COVID hit. And yeah, but we were very lucky because we'd been living in Hong Kong. So our pipeline was from Asia. So we were lucky because we saw it come in like by January 29th of 2020. Yeah, we were already like, holy cannoli. And so that was lucky. So we really learned our major lesson. And it was interesting when you were talking about agencies deciding to do, top shelf work internationally, is that's where we've always tried to live. And COVID, we just got very lucky that we already had those established networks, because Australia, I don't know, it could be a straw poll of one. I have been accused of having a negative bias, but I find Australia is a little bit of a tough industry. Doesn't always, in my experience, doesn't always value design and creativity.
Yeah. I would say that the onus is on us as creatives, and because it's true, but everybody we need to be able to communicate that value. And that is the job. There's a lot of to talk about why invest in this to a level that you need to, I think that can be the element that's sort of missing. And I think seasoned creatives become very good at it. They're amazing at a rationale. They understand their audience, and they trust themselves with the impact that they can kind of make. They've got a long list of case studies and those sorts of things. In the early years, I think that's the building blocks that need to be put in place. Like, truly backing yourself and knowing that you can create the outcome, and that is everything that the client's kind of looking for. But to be able to communicate that and show it, and that why they need to invest, and that gives them the best chance of achieving the outcome that they actually kind of want, is by investing in the process. There's a lot there to kind of unpack in that value-based pricing space. It's terribly exciting when you get it right. When you find the right kind of clients, the right kind of conversation, and you have this beautiful mix. And I've had clients call me up and say, I can't believe that worked. The conversation actually went the way that we scripted and we talked about and we wanted to, and it actually kind of worked. And then the relationship is just lifted to a whole different kind of territory of the service level that they were kind of doing before. So I think there's ways that we can do that. There's ways that we can focus on that as a skill, and in either sales, but even positioning, and the types of clients that we kind of work with and the industries that we work with as well. It's hard to talk broadly, because for some industries that's very, very hard, obviously, but for others it's the only way.
Yeah, and that's leads me to my next question is, in your experience within design, which modalities or practices have an easier time, do you think, scaling up than others?
Oh, yeah. I think any that are in the, I guess, digital and branding and things like that, they can be easy to. I've got a bit of a fragmented background, but I've been in digital. I've been in user experience design. I've been in branding and traditional design, production, and those sorts of things. I think digital and branding, they can be easier to kind of productize, and so you can it leads itself to bigger retainers, recurring clients, and things like that. So you can kind of create quite a nice model in terms of being able to kind of scale. Depending on the kind of the work cycle and the industries, things like our architecture friends and interior designer, where it's very heavily reliant on sort of individuals, and then can be highly personalized. But then it's at the whims of the process as well. So it's long lead times, things like that. So project-based, really long kind of times, you're just waiting for approval for 6 months and you're not really kind of hearing anything. So the uncertainty, whereas some of the other creative industries, it's more literally come in, come out, what you can kind of predict, and it's not really going to be that kind of situation. So it can be a little bit different depending on the industry. You're then getting things like, video and, photography and things like that, but it can, the same thing applies. You can get more of a feast or famine situation on the workflow and stuff like that, because it's quite easy to be able to to achieve very highly competitive. So you can scale quickly if you've got a good positioning, but also be at the whims of that up and down roller coaster that most creatives dread and that we kind of have. So yeah, it definitely depends on the I guess on the industry. One thing I think though is that I think having a little bit of maturity around the mindset of the owner, like knowing that, it's actually kind of more so about I don't think the industry really kind of defines it. Like if you have the right systems and the right kind of mindset, I think any of them is scalable. It's more so about how do you, like kind of what we talked about before, how do you turn it into an actual business, like making sure the model is sound and it's got everything that it kind of needs. So with the right systems and processes and the right mindset of, I want to do it, it kind of doesn't really matter too much about what the industry is. Each one is going to have its own challenges and its own nuances, I think.
Right. It's because with our industry, we do retail interiors. And so we're very, and I don't know what everyone else is doing or up to, but we're very contract light in this industry. So it's, hope is a plan. Like it's a lot of gentlemen's agreements, a lot of handshakes, a lot of, and it's it's, your pipeline or your clients, you would, my client rang me at 3 a.m. and said, walk, our VIPs, can you walk my dog? I'd be like, I'm there. My shoes are on.
Whatever you do. I'm already out the front of the apartment.
100%. Glad you called. I'm out the front. But that's good. And so we have a really strong working relationship, which is critical. But then when you mention architecture and things and going to these bigger firms, and I was at a massive firm just last week, one of the big motherships in Australia, and I was like, looking just at where their premises was, at the Rocks, and I cannot even imagine but I know my first thought was contracts. Like you must know every premier of every state of Australia, and you must be knee deep in contracts in the best way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. There's ways to, like I said, there's the maturity of the process that you need to kind of put in place, and it's not just your internal kind of processes. It's across the board. Like how do sales function? Like how do you get revenue and what sources does it come from? How diversified is it? How present do you need to be? Which staff do you have that are just finely tuned? We've changed the game on some studios just by basically putting in a tender writer full time. Which was because the conversion rate was so high for that space. It was like, okay, well, how about let's just try and optimize and automate that as much as possible. So it wasn't the owner having to do it. We put in a full-time tender writer and the business just went through the roof. So I think it comes down to that. Like you can have whatever you want. You can reverse engineer any size and make anything kind of scalable. It just comes down to good old planning, just putting the right things in place and what do we need to kind of systemize next. And typically it's like it's the mindset of the owner and where they want to get to. You've met some of these hungry people that are going to take over the world. It's inevitability. I'm working with some, the guys at, I'll give them a shout out, the guys at RK Collective, Neela and Chris, and they're just, they are so passionate and so incredible at what they do, and they have such an amazing kind of story, and they're winning global awards, the Soul Good Design Awards and things like that, and it's just absolutely phenomenal to watch. But we'll chat, and they're only at the start of the journey. So it's things like that. That it's going to get there. Absolutely, it's just the systemization of turning it into an actual kind of business behind the scenes.
Is that one of your favorite things? Because I mean, certainly from a monkey mind designer curious point of view, like, is it really fun for you when you onboard a new client and then you get to look, because you've got fresh eyes and
Yeah,
you've got experience, so you've got this like balance,
yeah,
and you don't have the emotional baggage that the
yep,
business people do. So
yep.
is that just like, oh, that's so juicy? It's like opening someone's head,
It's
taking a
it's
peek inside.
it's the most amazing. Like it's the. I think when we jumped on, I said that this is the last job I'm ever going to have. I absolutely love it, and particularly for the creative industry, like the industry that I'm so passionate about and I've kind of come through. But it's so familiar, yet it is so individual every single time. And I think that's what I love about it. I'm not a 12-step program guy. I'm not a just run this playbook and you'll be fine. Everybody's story is so different, yet despite everyone having the same sort of challenges, there's so much nuance. And I spoke to some of the most inspiring people this morning. I had an onboarding session with clients, and they've been in business 20 years, and they are the most incredible, well-respected, and amazing sort of people. It's just an honor to be in the room with them, let alone be able to be there to hear them sort of talk and vent and break it all down and figure out where they're going and what we can kind of do together. So yeah, it's amazing because there's just so much nuance, either our relationships at home, through to our relationships with our business partners, through to our relationships with our staff, through to our relationships with our clients. And there's just so many things that all come together, and our identity of self and as a business owner and as a creative, it's just a melting pot of mess, and it's beautiful in every single way, and I absolutely love it. So seeing that, and then that chaos at the start, and then being able to just kind of systematically, step by step, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's inevitable, and you kind of look back at it 6 months later, a year later, and you're like, oh my God, like it felt like that was so long ago, and yet it was only, this long ago. And I think the objectivity, like you mentioned, that's everything. Like having somebody that can look at it and you will never be able to see it. And you can see it, but it's not until somebody else stands in front of you and says the words out loud. And you're like, I always knew that that was the problem, or that I always knew that that needed to be addressed. But now that we've said it out loud, it has to be done. Like it has to be actioned. And so that accountability then kind of kicks in. So having that removed person, yeah, everybody in business should have that. Whoever it is, whether it's an uncle that's in business, or whether it's a close friend or another agency owner, everybody should have that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's like having a business psych. It's not until you speak out loud that you're like, okay, this is nuts. We've normalized dysfunction. This is crazy.
The husband and wife businesses, they're some of my personal favorites. It's,
Well, yeah, I
or
work with
the
my husband, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm definitely the third wheel in the room with that, but it's some very funny conversations, as you could possibly imagine. My personal favorite is the husband and wife sitting at home, and it's the wife's business, and I've got to make it work this time. I've had some kids, and I've got to make it work, and this time for sure, and we'll be talking. And I become the work husband because they don't sit on the couch at night and argue about what's happening in business. Business just gets better, and we can talk about the spreadsheets and we can talk about all that kind of stuff, and then the relationship gets better at home. It's one of the most fun and best kind of byproducts about what I do is then having the husband jump on the call and say, hey, this is great. Everything's going really, really well. I'm loving it, and then jumping off into the distance. So there's some of those as well. It's how it actually impacts every part of our life is quite why I do this. It's not just about the building the business. It's about obviously making the journey for that creative owner a reality.
Yes, I remember Marco Pierre White, the chef, famously saying, show me how you use a knife, and I will tell you how you live your life. this, you know, like how you do anything is how
Nice.
you do everything.
Everything.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, then the fish rots from the head in the spirit of Marco Pierre, but the spirit of poo.
Love it.
And just back to, so with your experience, are there markers, like would you be able to share a couple of things that are happening in your business that are little flags, things are going wrong, and or a couple of things are little markers that means things are going right?
Going wrong is very easy, so we'll start with that. There's usually an avoidance. There's an avoidance to on hard kind of conversations. Typically, we've got a dysfunctional relationship with either our bookkeeper, our accountant, or we don't even have a financial advisor or something along those lines. So I think one of the key markers is if there is uncertainty or if there is a question mark that kind of comes over your head whenever it's anything kind of finance related or you're avoiding the numbers in any way, shape or form, that's usually just because you're just uncomfortable with it and we just don't have the knowledge. So we kind of just like, oh, it's not my world. I'm not really strong with numbers. And then I kind of walk away from it. Whereas, as we know, that's kind of what business is about. So we don't need to become, you know, financial experts, but we do need to know what we need to know so that we can make decisions for our kind of business. So anything along those sorts of lines is one. The other one is probably team and people, I think is a big one. These are people businesses at the end of the day. And so it's all about kind of getting the best out of our team. I think businesses can just naturally, they generally grow organically. We're inherently, creatives are inherently good people, you know, and they are, by the nature of what they do, they don't want to be the boss. They don't want to play the role of the boss. Everybody wants to be liked. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. So that over time means that businesses can just organically grow and shift and sort of grow in strange ways that they probably shouldn't have. And it's not until somebody like me steps in and looks at it and asks the question, why is it like that? And the answer is usually always because it's always been thus. And then, you know, it's just kind of naturally sort of evolved into a state that's nowhere near what it actually kind of should be. If you were to actually write it out again and draw it as a plan, you'd say, actually, it probably should look a lot like this. And so we sometimes can just get a little bit too close to it or too close to the people, and it just kind of naturally shapes and evolves into a position that it probably shouldn't be in. Third one's probably sales. And I'm talking about three pillars that are probably the main focus areas that I work in. Sales is kind of a big one. And this, the identity of the introverted kind of creative versus what is my idea of a salesperson. And if you ask most creatives what a salesperson was, it's not a good answer, let's be honest. So, but how do we do sales authentically? Like, how do we do it in a way that we love and we enjoy? And we've usually found a rhythm, like we've usually found a way to be able to do it. And if you see a good creative in their element, like in the zone, in a pitch or a presentation or something like that, and you look at the audience and you see everyone's just enraptured, you know, that we figure out our zone of genius, and it kind of inevitably happens, and all agency owners kind of have an element of that. But sales it's more than just kind of jazz hands and coming all down on one kind of person when somebody happens to knock on the door, you know. So it needs, as these businesses get bigger, sales is a system, so it's not lumped wholly on one person's kind of shoulders and what that means. And actually doing it proactively in a way that we can use it to steer the strategy or steer the business in a way that we want it to go, rather than just kind of waiting to see which clients turn up, you know. So I think those are the sorts of things. If there's no outbound sales work at all, like in terms of, I see that client and I want that client and I'm going to reverse engineer how I get that. If it's largely just, we're just waiting for good clients to kind of turn up, that's usually a bit of a signal as well. So when it's going well, on the flip side is we usually have an owner that's able to step away and is not 100% need. Like, you know, things move and it's kind of okay. So there's if you can go away for a long trip to Europe with your family, those sorts of things, for as kind of, you know, make it a good one. You know what I mean? Make it a good month overseas and those sorts of things. And yeah, you can be checking in and those sorts of things, but there's no one pillar of anything that gets stopped. There's no blockage that gets 100% stopped because that owner's sort of not there. That's a very, very good sign. It does take some time to get there because typically delivery and sales are the two things that the owner is really, locked into. So it can get some time to kind of get there, but it's 100% possible to not be beholden to the actual kind of thing. So that's the big one. Financial rigor is probably the only other one. If you've got really good financial systems, as in, and I mean good people, like if you've got a bookkeeper, an accountant that you probably speak to more than once a year, and then personally, if you've got a financial advisor or a financial planner, if you've got all those things kind of in play, so you feel good about the structure, the trajectory, and you've got a bit of a plan, and that I find is one of the earliest things that we can kind of put in place that alleviates so much tension and so much stress in small businesses. So if you've got that rigor around it in terms of finance, it's kind of dialed in. You don't need to know everything, but you need to have the right information at the right time so you can make decisions for the business. That's a damn good sign as well.
Yeah, I totally get you, especially not needing to know all the details, but it doesn't hurt. And like on a sort of a side note, but we renovated our house over the past year and we finished and moved back in. And at first I was excited about it. Halfway through, I hated the builder. So I was just like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to deal with any of this. I'm done. And yeah, I tapped out. And then poor Chris had to shoulder the load. And then he tapped out. And I was like, all right, I'm fresh. I'm tapping back in. And then I tapped back in. And then all of a sudden, I got right up the tits of like certificate of occupancies, councils, certifiers. Like I'm speaking, in DA codes and stuff. And it was nowhere, like it was awful at the start to get to know. But once I was, once one or two people, especially the nicest learning was people were there to help. Like councils kind of traditionally looked upon as an obstacle, but kind of the opposite is true. All those awful laws are just symptoms of 1,000 shitty situations that happened and they're just trying to fix it. And so I spoke to some great council people and they step by step took me through, actually what I needed to do and things. And game changer. I was like, oh, okay. So because I'm not great with like the admin side, but I was like, okay, this is not here to eat me whole. This is here to service a community. And that's how I feel about with the finance as well. Once you realize where the ATO is coming from or super and stuff, it makes so much more sense. It's demystified.
And that's the big thing. I think that's the keep it up at nights. Like we always, talk about that at the start. Like what is the keep it up at night? What's the magic wand? If you could wave it right now, that problem would go away. And it's usually just make this make sense. Why do I have a $60,000 BAS bill? Like, how did that happen? Why is my bank account just being absolutely kind of drained all of a sudden? And I've got no idea why or what the mechanism is for that. And so I think having the right financial partners, these are basic systems that you can kind of put in place, but it just takes having really good, like anything, just finding your people that get it. And there's some great people in the creative space, like specialists that surround the creative industry that bookkeepers and accountants and financial planners that specialize in that industry because they know it's just foreign to us and we just don't want to have a bar of it. So it's like, great, this is what you run, So I've put some amazing kind of bookkeepers and things in place with some of my clients because they needed the structure. They needed to be honest, they needed the kick in the ass, and once it's done, it's like, oh my God, it's a game changer because they're not worried about it because it's been completely demystified and it's just another system or another foundation that we've put in place,
For sure. Every time we have a new bookkeeper, I think, I say to them, don't bury the lead on an email. And if I don't respond and you need me to, just put nag in the subject line, like just have at it or like Renée to do or now.
Yeah.
Because it's just not my jam. And the more, just what do you want me to do? You get these, especially you've got a daughter at school, like schools are they bury these emails that just got reams of emails.
So long.
What do you want from me? Like, do you want a tuck shop order? Do you want
it's hidden here somewhere, I'm sure.
Have you heard of bullet points? Could you write this? Could you write what you want in the subject line?
I think they might need a copywriter on staff, but yeah. My accountant, she texts, this is the system, and she sends the emails and all that kind of stuff, and then I'll get a text message at Friday at 4 p.m. saying, Damian, sign that thing, otherwise this will happen, and I'm like, thank you. Like I'm in there 2 seconds, I'm signed the thing, and it's done. You know what I mean? But she
Yeah.
knows. She 100% knows. And that's what you need. You need people that get you, they understand your industry, they understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and they know that well, and they can kind of work with you. And they're out there.
Yeah, for sure. Years ago, just reminds me, years ago, I used to be a PA to agency owners, and they were, guys who had kind of peaked in the 80s with the long lunch, like they were really, Melbourne version of Wolf of Wall Street.
Let's not downplay the long lunch. I'm a massive fan of that
Oh,
strategy. Thank you very much. Anyone that listens to this that knows me will be laughing at this moment. Trust me.
and as their PA, pissed it was like in your job title, and I'd have to take my laptop and be writing notes at lunch and stuff. And it was a whole culture in a fun way. It was a lot of fun. And but they used to so Thursdays was this. They had a lot of business, like 8 businesses, and so
Yeah.
Thursdays was all the meetings with all the business partners. And
Mm.
they would say to me, as stern as like they would look at me before every meeting, and they would say, "I want you to get us out of here with no actions."
Yes.
That's what I want from this meeting. No actions
Love that.
from us. And so, yeah, so like I'm robbing and pushing.
You're just
Okay, that's how it works. You can circle back.
Over there. That's great.
Like PA ninja.
Fantastic. Well done.
The same thing with the accountant. Like I say to our accountant, I don't understand what's going on, but this is what I want to happen. Can you make that happen?
Totally right. Absolutely. And I think you can have what you want. Like you can actually have the business that you want. It actually is possible. You do not need to be a finance expert. Yes, get into the weeds enough. Know your numbers. Absolutely. And this is all the stuff that we kind of focus on. Yep. Understand sales. Sales is a process. Understand finance. It's really simple to track. When you put in one simple system, like right at the start, know where your revenue is coming from and what is your target for the business? How far away are you? What decisions do you need to make in the business to be able to hit that target or not? Do you need to push a project out? Do you need to bring something forward? Do you need to have a long lunch to convert something and bring it up so you get a kickoff deposit so that your cash flow is evened out? Like that's simple stuff to be able to kind of map and figure out. It literally takes half an hour to be able to put those systems in place. And yet it's those things that I've seen have the biggest impact on creatives and designers. They just like, I've never looked at it from this perspective before. Nobody's shown me this kind of perspective before. They've just been figuring it out and jumping into zero, looking at it going, I don't know what that means, and jumping out again, But it's really, really simple stuff at the end of the day. And it's so empowering once you know it, because then you can focus on what you do best. Focus on your zone of brilliance and just be that jazz hand person in the room, convincing people that you're going to change the world, because that's what you should be doing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the same as well with the clients when you're talking about finding people to surround yourself with. Like sometimes I have to laugh, and it's great because there's Chris and I, and we have different lenses on what we look at in the business, and you kind of need that because sometimes in one day you can have 2 proposals out to market to 2 different clients, and one client is haggling for a discount and the other one has rubber stamped. Again, they're vastly different quotes because they're different jobs and that kind of thing. But yeah, you reflect and you're like, that's interesting because we still provide the same service to both. But the client, the client has their own energy, and where we work, like we have a lot of our clients, they have to deal with landlords, RDMs, shareholders, investors, stakeholders, management team, marketing, production, operations. It's huge. So we understand like full compassion, but yeah, it's the same thing. And sometimes, with design, you get beaten down on price and then you just start to think, I can't go any lower. But sometimes the opposite is true and actually need to be pegging way higher, like I've found.
Totally right.
Sometimes you're saying yes to the wrong thing because you just round peg in a square hole. But you've got this kind of lens like I should go lower when, you need to go higher.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this is we talk a lot about qualifying criteria and making sure the client's actually a client and things like that. And well before you've put in all of that time and all that effort and putting a pitch together and a proposal together and all those sorts of things. And so when we have a really low conversion rate towards the end, I think a lot of the time it's the volume as we get busier, and we mark success as number of proposals that we can get out the door. Like just get them out, and that's okay. And I use this term all the time with my clients. It's like, are they proposal worthy? Like, treat your proposal like it's gilded gold in a box, the world's most expensive thing, because it is. It takes a lot of time to nurture that relationship and to get to the end and to do all the required due diligence and research and whatever you need to kind of put something in front of somebody for them to be able to say, great, I'm just going to chat to two other people and I'll kind of come back to you. So it's things like that where, being very clear on what a client is, how that should act, understanding their kind of behaviors. And we've all got them. We've had those moments where, it was amazing. It was a dream. You look back at you now and go, oh, why can't we have more of those? It came in, the banter was incredible. They literally signing off. They were just loving everything you were kind of talking about. There's basically the proposals just get in the way. It's like, I don't really care how quickly can we start. You know what I mean? Like, let's just go. And if anything, your systemization is kind of getting in the way. It's like, oh, we've got to tick things off and do it right. But that's the dream scenario. So we've all had it. We just got to model what that looks like and turn it into, okay, this is what we're not only looking for, but how do we identify the right markers when people kind of come in, and making sure that we're not letting people through into the system because we're hungry, because the pipeline's not where it needs to be, because the revenue's not where it needs to be, because the team need to work on something, but we miss those key points. And the damage that can do by a non-ideal client, or getting somebody in that you kind of shouldn't. If you do even get the deal in the first place, you suddenly something changes at the end and the value proposition is not articulated, and they're like, all right, yeah, we'll come back to you and we'll let you know. Nothing. Ghosted.
Oh, crickets chirping.
It's haunting. And us sitting there with our pipeline just hitting refresh on our emails, just waiting. The glass of wine, late at night.
Oh my God, you're checking the internet. No, I've done my speed test, still working.
Yeah. Is it on? Is the internet on? Just checking.
Oh God, yes. Well, thank you so much for your time. And before we let you go, can you just share some insight? I understand at the Commercial Creative you have the crew, which is an inner sanctum group. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, great. Yeah, so the crew, just not sure where the name came from. Terrible. My branding friends, I'm sorry, it just came up. But the crew is our membership. So that's basically, I've tried to make it as accessible as I can for all creatives that are starting out on their journey. So you can jump in there, you can check out the website, thecommercialcreative.com. It's designed to give you all the resources you need at the early stages of business. So everything we talked about even today, things like revenue forecasts and sales processes and things like that, how to actually do triage calls, or how to actually, putting together value proposition, case studies, that kind of stuff. So it's all the groundwork that you need to be able to get up where you need to. So that's what that's there for. But great group of people. We do an Ask Me Anything every single month. So we jump on live as a kind of a big community, but it's an always on 24/7. We've got people from all over the world in there. It's really, really great. So you can ask me a question anytime that you like. And the community is also there to support each other as well. So it's really good. But the goal was creative business acumen, just putting the basics in place, and it's all there and it's all accessible, and there's other people there that have got your back as well. So, that's what it's for. And then we do, the next version up from that is we just do mentoring groups. So that's where my coaching comes in place. So, working with small rooms, creative entrepreneurs that have been running their businesses that have hit plateaus for any of the reasons that we've talked about today. We work together in person, every single week. And it's amazing.
Yeah, what a powerhouse, because community, I'm late to the party, community's 100% where it's at. I think they say the biggest killer in America is isolation.
Totally.
And
yeah,
especially with online and everything, we've become very quasi, like a dotted line to community. And a community group is, the kryptonite of isolation, being an island on your own and floating out to sea.
Yeah, I met with these amazing designers in Brisbane just the other week, and they're incredible, like top of their game. They look absolutely amazing, but they're two partners. And as we were sharing, they were sharing some of the stories. They were just like, oh, it's so good to hear this stuff. And they realize it's just them. All they do is they look at each other and they talk about it, but there's no sharing. There's no real, is it everybody else kind of experiencing this? And so when I discuss what we talk about in the crew, they're like, oh my God, everyone has these problems. I'm like, yeah, of course they do. Yeah, you're not alone. It's okay. So it's good. It's inspiring. Last job I'll ever have.
Oh, that warms my heart. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time. All the links will be in the podcast details, of course, so people can connect. You can connect with Damian and the Commercial Creative. Of course, you can follow him online and find him on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, Renee. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for inviting me on.